So angry.
It's like recording a Guns N' Roses album. Just problems all over the place.
All over the place. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Music and Moonsalts. I am your host, Chris Bourdine, and today I have a familiar face who's normally here to talk wrestling. Today we're talking music. Mr. Matt Durr is on the show. Matt, how are you again?
I'm wonderful. I'm
Full
glad to be back in the
this
jungle.
This is the second time we've done this. It's because I'm an idiot and yeah, so.
And the best part was I had just made a mistake, and you were calling me out on camera for it.
I was.
And then realized you made the mistake. So that's karma.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yes. Well, I'm glad I found out when I did, and not like after we were finished, and then that would have been terrible.
Sure.
So we are talking Matt's favorite band, Guns N' Roses, today. Just a quick story: when Matt and I first met in 2002, while both working at Doug and Ted's Foodland in Tecumseh, Michigan. I saw him when he started, and I was like, oh, who's this new guy? Like, he looks like he's my age, but I don't recognize him from school. Who's this dude? And then, like, one of the first things I noticed about him is he had a Guns N' Roses sticker on his name tag. So I'm like, oh, he likes rock music. I like rock music. And that was, like, the second thing besides hockey that, like, struck up our friendship. Way before wrestling, wrestling is what we talk about 90% of the time. So go figure.
Yeah, literally up till midnight the night before we're recording this, texting about pro wrestling.
Yes. Matt right now is in the afterglow of a couple nights ago, a moment that hopefully won't turn out to be the wrestling equivalent of Chinese democracy. Yes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
I told you I had a joke. I told you I had a joke. Nailed it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you took a shot at Guns N' Roses and my favorite wrestler. I'm glad I came on this podcast. Fantastic, fantastic way to spend an afternoon. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. So in these music discussions we would have at Doug and Ted's Foodland, it was kind of like a back and forth. Whereas, like, we would take turns making fun of each other's favorite bands because you didn't like Kiss and I didn't like Guns N' Roses at the time. And I'll tell you when that changed for me was, and I came to realize that I think my biggest problem was I didn't like Axl's voice. Because I always thought the music was really good, but Axl's voice, I just, especially on certain songs, it was just like nails on a chalkboard type stuff. And so I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought or attention until my mom bought the first Duff McKagan book entitled It's So Easy and Other Lies at Barnes & Noble because it was on sale or something like that. And I play bass, and he's a bass player, so why wouldn't I like this book? And she was right. I loved the book. It was a great book. And it made me go back and kind of give, and not just the, the radio songs. Like, I actually went out and picked up Appetite for Destruction and listened to it all the way through and was like, holy crap, this is really good. Mainly, obviously, Slash is great and all that, but I being the bass player, I focused in on Duff's playing, and it was just, I love his tone. I love the chorus effect he uses on a lot of their songs. I just love his style. I've nicked a couple Duff McKagan bass runs myself from time to time. So yeah, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, and so I was able to. I actually made a pact with you that I upheld. That I said that if the original lineup ever reunited, I would go see them with you. And we got as close as we were gonna get. So
right.
we went to I believe it was the first official show of the tour.
Yeah, because they the Not in This Lifetime
Yeah,
tour. It was the first one outside of California because they
right.
did a couple shows
Well, they
in
opened
LA.
the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas too, I think. If I
Yeah,
remember
that might have been
correctly.
the same time. I mean, that was 5 years ago now, so
Yeah.
I forget the exact details. But I'm pretty sure Ford Field was the first like tour date that you
Yes.
could get. You didn't have to go to see like them in a small club in LA, or I know they played the Forum a couple times and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Coachella, I think, was the big reveal that it was
yeah,
happening. Um, well, 5 years ago, shoot, we're talking about a couple albums that are 30 years old.
I
Um,
know.
when did you become a Guns N' Roses fan, Matt?
Not too long before you and I met and started hanging out. It was my senior year of high school, so end of 2001 into 2002. Friend of our podcast from back in the day, the Seattle Correspondent, Matt Nanty, turned me on to the band. He gave me the Appetite for Destruction album, and I had I knew the band from their singles, Paradise City and November Rain and that stuff. Wasn't a big fan, but when I listened to that all the way through, much like you, I developed such an appreciation for just how raw and
Mm-hmm.
stripped down that first album really is. And you mentioned, Duff and Izzy and Steven Adler on Appetite, just Axl and Slash get all the attention,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand why. But those three, they hold every song together, and
Yes.
they're, to me, and we see it on the two albums we're going to discuss today, especially Izzy
Yes.
and Duff.
Yes.
They just, that to me is what makes Guns N' Roses so good.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing that for the first time, or not for the first time, but
Yeah.
listening to it all the way through and giving it a few listens, I just fell in love with that album. And then I bought these two, and it's just been, downhill ever since. If you're my wife and you don't like watching me spend, tons of money to go see these shows, and
Right.
stuff like that. But for me, it was the start of, me finding my favorite band.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, as I said, 30 years ago, September of 1991, September 17th, 1991, to be exact, day before my birthday. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 are released at midnight. And there's some changeover in the band. Steven Adler is out, except for on one track on Use Your Illusion 2. And Matt Sorum is in to play drums. And we've also added a sixth member to the band. Dizzy Reed is officially part of the band as a keyboard player. And so that kind of plays into too how like the Guns N' Roses sound was developing, that we've got to bring on a full-time keyboard player. They actually started the tour before the albums came out because they couldn't get it finished. Axl and Slash are arguing over mixes, and they actually finished recording like the last half a dozen songs on the road during the tour.
Yeah, I think the last song was recorded in like August. So like a month before this comes out, they were still finalizing and this is 1991.
Right.
It's not like today where you can just send a track over. Like they had a
Yeah.
lot of work to do still.
Oh yeah, for sure. They released them at midnight, which I wasn't quite sure. I'm guessing that wasn't like, common back then, because otherwise I don't know why it would be noted in my research, like that. But and they sell like 500,000 copies within the first couple hours. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I know it's really popular, but I didn't realize it sold that quickly.
Well, it was like I said, it was one of the most anticipated albums in rock history. Two of the most anticipated albums in rock history. There were people in the industry who were thinking that they could do Thriller or Born in the USA numbers. And it didn't quite reach that, probably because they weren't able to sell the albums in two of the most popular retailers,
right,
being Kmart and Walmart, because of the profanity. But they still, each one is still over 7 times platinum. So they did okay. And then they debuted at 1 and 2, with 2 taking the number 1 spot and 1 taking the number 2 spot. So, which is kind of cool. It's weird. I guess you could be like, oh, I only have money for 1, so I'll buy the one with the song from Terminator on it. But like, no, like my brain, like if Kiss did something similar today, like, well, I'd have to.
No one would buy it.
Yes, no one would buy it except for me.
And there's my receipt.
Yes. See, this is almost 20 years of this, people. It's awesome. No, like I would make sure like I was able to buy both at the same time. So it's kind of weird that there was even like a discrepancy, but it is what it is. And this is like in the middle of like a murderer's row of classic, not classic rock as in the genre, but like albums that are considered classic now, looking back. Last month I had Joel Pearl on. We discussed Metallica's Black Album, and that kind of kicked it off between August and October of the Black Album, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, Nirvana's Nevermind, Pearl Jam's 10, Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger, and Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which are like, I mean, those, it's crazy when you think like that all those albums that songs from those albums get so much radio airplay and have for 30 years.
Right.
And like they all came out within, 44 days.
Well, and it's interesting too, if you look at, you've got Metallica and Guns N' Roses are kind of the hard rock.
And they're like the old guard. They're like the 2 biggest bands in the world at this point.
Right. And then the other 3 of the other albums you mentioned are like the new wave that completely changed, music. And some would argue was the death of rock and roll. But those albums are, I mean, you can't, I'm no Nirvana fan, but you can't deny how impactful that album is. And it has a place in, on those top 50 albums of all time, playlist, lists that come out. So
for sure. So what we're going to do today, instead of, breaking down each album like I would normally, because, there's 30 songs to talk about. What I decided when I texted Matt asking him to be on was, what if we each made a 15 song like super album, and we could kind of like see what's different from each other, and how we kind of slotted things differently and stuff like that. So that's what we're gonna do today. Before we're gonna give our lists, I have a couple interesting questions to kind of get a gauge. So first of all, there's 6 songs that get heavy radio airplay. Are any of those songs not on your album?
Yes, one of them is not. If it's the 6 I think you're talking about, one of them is not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what other ones there would be, but yes, I believe it's the same. Yes, we're probably.
Yeah.
And myself as well has one of those missing. We will see if it's the same one as we reveal our lists. And are you pretty even, or are you skewed towards one or the other?
Totally skewed towards one. Like, so much so I could make the argument you could pull 3 songs off of it and just take 3 from the other one, and I'd be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about there and almost at that ratio. I think I gave it one more, but yeah, it's pretty close. So, all right, Matt, I'll let you go first. Give me your, I called it Choose Your Illusion, but whatever. What's your, give me your album, sir.
You want it 1 through 15?
Yeah, go ahead and give,
okay.
Give me 1 through 15.
So I kick it off with what actually closes Use Your Illusion 1, and that is Coma. I love the build of that song. And I feel like if you're going to start something, you want it, much like in pro wrestling, if you're not last, you want to be first. And I knew I was going to make Coma last, so I made it first. And we can get into why in a bit. I follow that up with Right Next Door to Hell.
Okay.
Which is the actual first song on the album. I love that up front. I've got Back Off Bitch, followed by Double Talkin Jive. Then we finally move over to Use Your Illusion 2, and I've got Civil War. Pick it back up with Live and Let Die, Shotgun Blues, and then You Could Be Mine. Then into Perfect Crime and Bad Obsession. Follow that up with Don't Cry, the original version off of Use Your Illusion 1. And then we go with Get in the Ring, Don't Damn Me, and Pretty Tied Up. And then we close it off with November Rain.
Okay. Got some differences. Got some stuff slotted different. Okay, I opened up with You Could Be Mine. Just that opening drum fill, the way that song starts and the way that song builds. I thought that's just an awesome opening song. So that was 1. 2, I did Don't Damn Me, because I just love that riff. I went Dust and Bones, because I think that's just a nice groovy little tune. Live and Let Die, Pretty Tied Up, Dead Horse. I put Coma in the middle because I wanted to separate the 2 long songs, and I thought like in the middle, maybe like as like a last track on side 1, like if you're thinking of it on like a cassette or like an album.
Yeah,
I thought that would be kind of cool. And then we go to Civil War, Double Talkin Jive, Bad Obsession, Don't Cry, the original, the only version in my book.
Right.
I went with The Garden because I think the Alice Cooper guest vocal is really cool. Yeah. So Fine, because I gotta have the Duff lead vocal on here. And then Right Next Door to Hell, and I also finished with November Rain.
There we go.
So
November Rain, I know we're going to go and talk about it. I'll just go right to November. I wish November Rain was the song they closed all their concerts with instead of Paradise City. I know they like to blow the cannons and all that, but I feel like closing their concerts with the entire arena singing November Rain would be the best way to end it. But I don't know if it's a thing where Axl's voice can't hold up that long, and he does, because when it's just him and that piano, that voice now is not great. Right. So I just feel like that's a song. To me, it's like the perfect end of a night song for that band, because it has a little bit of everything that they do well.
I was pretty sure that was going to be my last track, just because of the way the second part of the song, the more up tempo part, I think that's I love that part of the song anyway, and then just the way it ends with the rain and everything, I just thought that was an awesome way to end an album. And your point, I could definitely see, I could make the case for that being a set closer for a concert as well. So yeah. Yeah, and there was some like I didn't put Get in the Ring. That would probably be like my bonus track if I had one. The way I was setting, piecing out my album, like the whole quote unquote live aspect of it, like it didn't like fit with the rest of the songs. But I do like that song. And then like I like you think one is the much better album of the two. And I had 4 songs from 2, and neither of us had "Knockin' on Heaven's Door," which was the one song that
and that's I don't hate that song. I know you do not like that song at all. I don't hate it, but Axl's voice is at its absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of the, it's obviously a Bob Dylan song. Like, it's not something that I don't feel like the band, no one stands out in the song. And it just gets played to death on the radio. So it's when I listen to the album now, unless it's on vinyl, it's a skip. I don't dig that song anymore. And I do want to double back real quick, because you mentioned Get in the Ring. I will fully acknowledge there are 4 or 5 songs that are much better on both albums. I just love that song because it's just Axl being Axl.
Yeah.
It's what other guy literally calls someone out by their name in a song, and it's just like,
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to swear on your podcast for
Yeah.
Don't want to get banned in Walmart for the podcast too.
There's the one line where it's like Bob Pinciotti Jr. and then I'm not gonna finish the line, but like.
Yeah, it's Bob Guccione Jr.
Okay,
Spin, and then he just keeps going off on the guy. I just love that Axl dedicated one song in this album just so he could stick it to somebody.
No, that's like I said, I almost added that, but like I said, it just didn't fit with the rest of what I had. Don't Cry is probably my second favorite Guns N' Roses song.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I love that song. It's a beautiful song. I think it's structured really well. I think the guitar solo in it is masterful because it's not overly it serves the song perfectly.
It's technically proficient. Like, yes. It's not what Slash is known for.
Right.
But I think him and Axl both on that song prove that there's more to them than just being loud and raw.
Right. Yeah. And that song dates like to the beginning of the band.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I found interesting. And apparently there's a version out there somewhere that was recorded around the same time as Appetite was. So there's a third version.
I'm pretty sure there's an early version of Coma out there too.
Okay.
Slash wrote that in the 80s, from what I understand, and Axl just was unable to come up with, like, he just couldn't write for it, and then he finally, it came to him. But that song was something that was around for a really long time too.
So I Coma, that's another I love. It's very cinematic with the the defibrillator and the hospital sound effects and all that kind of stuff. That opening again, that chorus on Duff's bass on that intro, awesome stuff. And I think you're kind of ballsy putting a 10-minute song as your lead track on the album, but it is what it is.
But if any band's gonna do it, wouldn't it be Guns N' Roses?
Very true, very true. I liked, like I said, I wanted it kind of in the middle because I knew I was ending with November Rain, so I knew like, okay, I'll put, the other long song like in the middle, and I thought because I had Dead Horse, and I liked how at the end, it's it repeats, the opening acoustic guitar on it was actually written by Axl. I found that interesting.
You know that?
Yeah. And I liked how, so there's the acoustic intro, and then I like at the end of the song, it goes back to that, and then there's like the sound effect of like them rewinding the tape. and that's how the song ends. And I thought going from that into the heartbeat noises that start Coma, I thought that was really cool back to back.
So it's interesting you say that, because if you listen, the last sound you hear on Coma is the drum. Sounds like it's the kick drum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Right Next Door to Hell starts with the drum. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, if you're gonna, because I love Coma, like I said, pro wrestling, if you're not last, you want to be first,
right?
And that's almost like Coma's almost like two songs, because it starts off, gets real high, then comes down a little bit, and then picks back up. And then I figured when it comes down at the end, if you pick it up with Right Next Door to Hell, then you're on that run of I do 3 straight kind of upbeat and heavier songs.
Coma's like almost I mean, it's much longer, but it's very a day in the life in that way, where it's like in the middle it's like a completely different song. And then going back to November Rain, that's basically like their Stairway to Heaven. When you think about
it's really no, you're absolutely right. And that's one of those songs too, like when you hear the piano, you know what it is, and if you're a fan of the band, you know all the words, and it's just like it brings you up, even though it's kind of a depressing song. But.
Right. Yeah. And it's like the most views for a music video on YouTube or something like it's got like it's like
is it really?
It's up there. It's like well over 1 billion views.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I never go back and watch the videos anymore.
Let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
Yeah, see, you're gonna do your research live on here. But I will say we talked about this earlier. I remember hating that music video when I was like 8 years old, because it's like an 8 or 10 minute music video, and whenever it came on MTV, you knew you weren't getting anything else for like 10 minutes. And now it's one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah, it's right now it's at 1.6 billion views on YouTube.
Wow, so a few people have seen it.
A few people have watched it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, just the Slash playing the guitar solo in the rain, and just it's a classic video, that's for sure.
I wonder if that video and that song were the lead single, and not, because Don't Cry is the first single, right?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was, but I wonder if November Rain was the lead single, if it would have got to the Thriller levels that you were talking about earlier.
It maybe. Especially when you think about the videos. I mean, the Thriller video is like pretty long too.
Yeah. And help sell the album.
Yeah.
It really did go a long way to pushing it. So
for sure. Live and Let Die, we both had on there. This is an awesome cover. Hopefully my dad's not watching, because he might disown me, but I like this version better than the Paul McCartney version.
I do too.
Just because I like it's more stylistically like what I'm into, and I like the original's great. Don't get me wrong, I love the original too, but I love the main riff being played by the guitar as opposed by all strings and orchestra. Like it just packs more of a punch for me. So.
And I feel like Axl's vocal range is really showcased in this song too.
Right.
And it's you can see that, you hear the power in his voice without him being too Axl Rose-ish, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the video for that song is Izzy's last appearance with the band.
Yeah.
So
which coincides directly with the quality of work from the band after that.
And speaking of Izzy, like, I had 2 of his songs on my and I think between the 2 albums he sings like a total of 4.
Yeah, I think he's on 4 songs.
Yeah, it's Dust and Bones, Double Talkin Jive, and You're Not the First, or
You're Not the First. Yeah.
Yeah, You're Not the First on 1, and then he does 14 years on 2. So,
Yep.
um,
You Ain't the First was one that I almost put on here. You Ain't the First and Pretty Tied Up were the two that I pulled off so that I could get Shotgun Blues and Perfect Crime on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I so like Dust and Bones and Pretty Tied Up, and there was there one more? No, I think those were the only two. I was familiar because this is like I've never gone and actually listened to these two albums all the way through until embarking on this.
Like back to back or just in general?
In general.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I've thought about picking them up before, and because like I don't it was just like I'm only, I was only familiar with the 6 songs or whatever, and like looking like I remember looking at the backs of them a couple different times. I'm like, there's a lot on here that I don't know, and if I don't like I never really went back but I was familiar with Dust and Bones and Pretty Tied Up from the Live Era release.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted those two both on there. I do I don't know why I love when bands use a sitar on their songs. So that at the beginning of Pretty Tied Up, and then the Pearls of Rock and Roll Decadence.
Right.
Cracks.
Right. And one, and at the end there, he's mumbling something at the end too. Yeah.
And then I think, like I said, the Garden, I just, having the Alice Cooper guest spot, the feature, I believe they call it now.
Yeah.
In the rap game, it's a feature. But
the DJ Khaled special.
Exactly. I was like, I listened to him like, that sounds like Alice.
Yep.
That's got to be, and then it's Alice. So.
And I forget which song it is on the album, but Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon does vocals on one of the songs too.
Yeah. So yeah. I don't have. Oh, and then like, obviously, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Like, I've never seen Cool Hand Luke in my life, but I know that
you're right.
I know that it's like what's the movie 7? Like, I've never seen 7, but I know what's in the box.
Yeah. Yep.
It's one of those type things. So,
Civil War is one of those songs too that is dangerously close to being like off of my.
Oh, we lost your video. There we
I'm
go.
back.
We're back.
Someone tried calling me. My mistake.
So popular.
Yeah, right. It's one of those songs that's on the verge of just being like removed from my my rotation of guys, just because I've heard it so much.
Yeah.
And
there is
as much as I love Sweet Child of Mine, it's the same thing. Like I've heard it so many times now that it just it's
song,
not exciting.
That song in particular, it could have been tightened up a little bit. Like there's just there's a lot of filler in that song that I think contributes to that, because I'm the same way. I do like I really like parts of it, and then there's others where I'm like, it's just like I said, it's just filler. Like they could have edited that song down, because that's another fairly long song.
And to make a wrestling reference, it's kind of like some of those Shawn Michaels matches in the last half of his career. If you just pull 4 or 5 minutes out of his matches, they go from being really great to being classics.
I don't know.
And with this song, I feel like
every
if you pull
Shawn
like a
Michaels
minute.
match is a classic.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Him and Triple H laying on each other in Hell in a Cell for 45 minutes was a real classic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why am I so violent, Matt?
So you mentioned earlier, or you said you kicked off with "You Could Be Mine." That's my favorite Guns N' Roses song.
Okay.
And that was almost what I was going to start with, but I feel like coming into the back half of that album, for me, because I was making my own album, I almost wanted to use that as the signifier of like, this is the start of the second half of
Okay.
your album.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
But for all the reasons you mentioned, the way it starts out, the slow build, to me, it's the perfect encapsulation of everything I love of Guns N' Roses. Axl's scream is in it.
Yeah.
His little, not rap in the terms of like hip hop rap, but him just kind of talking shit like he does, and the band playing, Slash sounds great on that song, and Izzy and Duffer right there. It's my favorite Guns N' Roses song.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's in my top 5 for sure. That was one of the ones where it's like I told you when we saw them, I'm like, okay, if they play, and I had a list of songs, if they play these songs, I'm happy, and they played all of them, so I was happy. So.
Yeah, and I love. I mean, I've seen Guns N' Roses 5 or 6 times now. Live, it still comes off great. It's a killer song.
Oh yeah, for sure. I understand. We have a third list.
We do, from Matt,
the aforementioned Seattle Correspondent.
Yes, when you texted me about this, I was like, dude, this is in unfortunately when we're recording, he's unavailable.
Busy. He's a little busy on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah. So the pastor of rock and roll is at church right now. So he sent along, and I had told you I was a little upset because I was going to originally keep the open of one and the finish of Right Next Door to Hell and Coma as my first and 15th track, because I love the way the album, I just feel like they're great bookends for the album.
Right.
But when he sent that to me, I was like, I've got to change it up a bit then, because I don't want to. So he went with Right Next Door to Hell, Dust and Bones, Civil War, Don't Cry, the original, Live and Let Die, Yesterdays, Locomotive, Double Talkin' Jive, November Rain, Knocking on Heaven's Door, Pretty Tied Up, Garden of Eden, Estranged, You Could Be Mine, and Coma.
Nice.
So his is a little different than ours. And I know part of that is Matt is a very big prog rock guy. And you'll notice some of the songs on here are more of their longer I wouldn't call them epics, but they're more technically sound songs, like Yesterdays and Locomotive. Neither one of us had that, but he was all about it.
Yesterdays was another one where it was on the maybe pile, because again, I recognized it from the live era, and I was like, okay, so I know that song, but it didn't quite make the cut. Unless I missed it on hit. Like, none of us completed the trilogy, huh? Of Don't Cry, November Rain, and Estranged.
No, Matt did.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he's got Don't Cry was 4, November Rain was 9, and Estranged was 13.
Okay. Well,
so and I knew Estranged was going to be on there. I know that's one of his favorite songs.
Okay. I like parts of that song, but it's just way too long. Like,
I feel the entire second album is that way.
Yeah.
I like parts of a song, and then with the exception of a few, I'm just like this. I lose it. It just loses interest for me. I don't know why.
So.
And I wonder, it would be interesting to see, like, if those songs were the ones that they were fighting about toward the end, or if they were just like, they got to a point where they're like, we got to get stuff on this album. We got to get it out here.
Yeah.
We don't have time to keep playing games here.
Right. Yeah, I was, I had every intention of going back and at least reading like this section of Duff's book. But I ran out of time before we were going to record. So
if I remember correctly, this is when he, and I think Izzy as well, were pretty heavy into their issues.
Right.
And he admits in the book, like, he's blacked out for large portions of recording Use Your Illusion. Right. He moves to Chicago at some point.
Yeah.
Because they recorded part of the album, and he moved there, and he talks about just waking up and downing like a pint of vodka before he even got out of bed. And just like, Yeah, so I don't know that he would have much to offer to this era.
Maybe not. Yeah, it's just interesting because they're, like I said, they're like one of the, if they're not the biggest, they're like 2 biggest band in the world at this point, and it's just like the fractures are starting to show. So
and by this point, the fractures were already pretty big. I mean, that's what led to Steven leaving the band, and
right.
Axl did the infamous, if certain members of the band don't quit dancing with Mr. Brownstone. I think that was like 88 or 89, right before they were supposed to start work on the next album. And then they, if I remember correctly, they kind of went their separate ways for a little bit because everyone was mad at each other, and then they came back to make these albums.
Yeah. They go on tour for like 18 months off of this. They do the joint tour with Metallica, and then I think they do, at least it's like a South American run with the Rolling Stones or something like that. Like,
yeah.
So a couple big, huge bills there, like those.
And then they went to Europe too.
Yeah.
And they, if I remember, they were playing like all the major festivals over in Europe, on top of their own tour. And I think they did 3 legs in the US on those 18 months, something like that.
That sounds about, I mean, that would sound about right.
I remember reading like the Wikipedia of tour dates for that tour. And I mean, they played the Toledo Sports Arena on that tour, and they played like tiny venues, 6,000 seat venues, pretty much anywhere they would take them. They were there.
Yeah.
And making money hand over fist, apparently.
So, all righty. Is there anything we missed?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we pretty much, I will post, each of our lists in the description on this video. I'll also I made a Spotify playlist of my album that I will also include the link for, so you can check that out. So I guess that's it. I didn't even do my plugs. Please, if you've made it this far, please subscribe to my channel. By the time this is released, you only got a couple weeks. It's looking like I'm not gonna have to talk about Taylor Swift, so that's good and bad, because I really want to get to 100 subscribers, so I can just tell you, hey, just go to youtube.com/musicandmoonsalts instead of youtube.com/ a bunch of random numbers and letters. It makes it a lot easier. But yeah, there's still time. Get me up to 100 subscribers, please, and I'll have Jeremy Lambert on to talk some Taylor Swift in October. But subscribe, leave a thumbs up, tap the bell for notifications, leave a comment. You can follow me on Twitter at IBNSChris. Matt's Twitter handle is there on the screen as well, at MDur84. If you're interested in Mega Millions results
and random pro wrestling opinions,
exactly,
and occasional news stories.
Yeah, occasionally, but pretty much just lottery results and a couple pearls of wrestling wisdom. So, which is good stuff. So, all right, guys. Until next time, see ya.